Welcome to another video on Patreon. This one is going to be kind of TV trivia and other media. So this is Tim in Tokyo.
This is Paul, beardless. Don't be afraid. It's still me. Just shaved it off yesterday, so it's kind of, the wounds are still fresh.
Mhm. Okay, so I've got four questions. It's going to be plenty, I think. Um, so first off,
Yes, if there's one of those open-ended ones, that'll take half the episode for me to, you mean you're not going to give me like multiple choice?
okay, well, I do have choices, although you might not always need them.
Okay.
But we'll see.
I'm
So,
ready.
Margaret Hamilton is best known as the Wicked Witch of the West in the 1939 MGM film The Wizard of Oz.
How about a little fire, Scarecrow?
She's also a distant cousin of a certain Neil Hamilton, who we might be familiar with.
Didn't know
But
that.
before Margaret Hamilton went into show business in 1929, she was a kindergarten teacher. Which one of the following future stars was among her students? A. Vivian Lee, B. Howard Duff, C. Jim Backus, D. Peter Cushing.
It's got to be Jim Backus, right?
Yes, it is.
I don't know where I heard that recently, but who knew that this would be like in the air when you asked me this?
Yeah, I think I
How
saw
did
it.
you
I
find
think I
out?
saw it on social media somewhere,
That's probably where I picked it up.
probably. Yeah, and I looked around on the web, found on many sites that he was supposedly her student. Some mentioned kindergarten, some just said elementary school. But if you assume that he was in kindergarten and he was 5 years old, the math kind of surprises me
Hmm.
because he was born in 1913, as were all of the actors I mentioned there in my choices.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and so that means that Bacchus would have presumably gone to kindergarten in 1918.
Hmm.
Margaret Hamilton was born in 1902, which means in 1918 she would have been 16. I don't know if there was such a thing as a 16-year-old school teacher in those days.
Oh, I think there was.
Maybe.
I think there was. You could go to a professional school, I think, and just learn to teach, rather than
Hmm.
learn to like do what kids do in high school. The education system was so much different, back at the turn of the century. Public schools were not exactly quite public schools yet. And remember, grandma and our grandmother, our father's mother, would have had to pay tuition to go to high school in
Hmm.
town, but she lived on a farm, and so her family couldn't afford it. So she ended her education in eighth grade, or with eighth
Hmm.
grade. So yeah,
Yeah.
crazy times. But I've got to admit the thing I'm having the hardest time with is imagining Jim Backus as a 5-year-old. The mind boggles. Oh,
So actor
lovey, bring me my milk and cookies.
uh, actor William Wyndham is also supposed to have been a student of hers until she kicked him out for rambunctious behavior.
Oh, hmm. And having
Uh,
a little dog Toto who just like tore the place up.
Speaking of children's stories, when I was in the U.S. for Christmas in 2000, I saw an ad for a home video edition of an animated version of Snow White, but not the Disney one.
Hmm.
The ad said that this version of Snow White was, quote, from the makers of Batman and Ghostbusters. What studio were they talking about? Do you need choices?
Warner Brothers? Or was it an
No.
animation studio? Uh,
Okay, well, let me read the choices.
okay.
Yes. A. Warner Brothers.
Hmm.
B. Columbia.
Hmm.
C. Hanna-Barbera. D. Filmation.
Filmation?
Yes. So, but of course, mentioning Batman and Ghostbusters was super sneaky language because it had nothing to do with Michael Keaton or Bill Murray.
Right.
They were referring to the Filmation Batman cartoons of 1968 and 77
Hmm.
and the live action Saturday morning show The Ghostbusters from 1975,
Which
starring
was,
Forrest Tucker and Larry Storch. Also starring, yeah, so Batman and Ghostbusters, you know what image they want to come into people's minds, but that's
oh
not what
yeah,
they're actually talking
brilliant.
about.
Yeah. Instead of Ray Parker Jr., we've got the Ghostbusters, spirits and demons beware.
Yeah. Also starring a guy in a gorilla suit. The gorilla's name was Tracy, and he was played by Bob Burns, or as the opening credits said, trained by Bob Burns. Uh,
I'm Spencer.
Burn,
He's Tracy. I'm Kong.
Burns, who just turned 89 on May 12th, is well known as a collector of Hollywood props, costumes, and memorabilia.
Hmm.
His collection is known as Bob's Basement, and it includes the last surviving original King Kong 18-inch armature, which is a bendable framework figure.
Right,
Uh,
the metal kind of skeleton of the figure, and
mhm.
18 inches was the version that was animated for all of the scenes on the island. Interestingly, there was a taller armature for the New York scenes in the last 35, 40 minutes of the film, because they figured the buildings were going, the fake buildings, the model buildings were going to completely dwarf him, so they had to make him taller in relation to the humans and the cars on the ground, to make him seem as big as he seemed in the island shots.
So Burns also played many other gorillas besides Tracy. Which of the following guys in gorilla suits was not Bob Burns?
Oh,
A. Burton the Gorilla on the Wonderbug segment of the Croft Super Show. B. Did that bring back some memories?
almost.
B. Paul the Gorilla on the Electric Company.
That's the first thing I thought of, but please go ahead.
Yeah. C. Kogar the Gorilla in the 1966 film Rat Fink and Boo Boo, which is kind of suggestive of Batman 66. It came out in 66. It sounds like it was a really weird film. But anyway, the other choice is D. An unnamed gorilla on the 1966 My Three Sons episode Steve and the Huntress. So, Gorilla on Croft Super Show, on Electric Company, in Ratfink and Boo Boo, or on My Three Sons.
I'm going to say Paul the Gorilla from the Electric Company.
Right, that was not Bob Burns. That
That was
was
actually an actor
Jim
from the
Boyd.
show. Right, Jim
Yeah,
Boyd
Jim Boyd.
would have been Crank. Was did he play
Right,
Crank?
right. So in the first season of Electric Company, he was only doing voices and puppeteering.
I have heard that, yes.
And I guess being Paul the Gorilla was kind of puppeteering, a full body puppet. In the second season, he appeared on camera as J. Arthur Crank, and eventually as other characters. And each of the actors had kind of a character name for when they were basically themselves.
Hmm.
His name was Andy.
Oh yeah. Do you know why he's called J. Arthur Crank?
Well, I know that there was a real person named J. Arthur something else.
Rank, yes, J. Arthur
Rank.
Rank.
That's it.
He was a film producer in the
Hmm.
UK, and is most
Yeah,
famous
yeah,
for
yeah.
bringing the films of Powell and Pressburger into the world, like The Red Shoes, Tales of Hoffman, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm trying to think of another one. Oh, Stairway to Heaven is one, but it's not the,
Led Zeppelin.
no. The libretto is not by Robert Plant. I don't think he was born yet.
And the Red Shoes is not the Kate Bush album. Okay,
No, no, although I'm certain that she named that her album after that film because it's one of
probably.
the most beloved films about dancing ever made. And it's also creepy and uncanny the way that all Powell and Pressburger films are creepy and uncanny. Oh, Black Narcissus is my favorite. That's like the creepiest film ever and has the most like tamped down, crammed in, repressed sexuality about to blow up. of any film I've ever seen from pretty much any decade, certainly the 1940s when it was produced. Deborah Carr, love some Deborah Carr. Anyway,
By the way, My Three Sons episode with the gorilla featured Terry Moore, Venus to us, as an explorer who dates Steve, Fred McMurray, and invites him to come on a safari with her. The idiot doesn't go. I'd go anywhere with Terry Moore. Uh, the gorilla appearance is in a dream had by the youngest boy, Ernie.
okay, okay. I was hoping it was a dream that Steve had. That would have been so much more interesting.
Now, if we can veer into comic books, but sticking with gorillas,
I'm
as
still
you
trying
know,
to
DC.
imagine. I'm still trying to imagine even Fred McMurray, even stolid Fred McMurray, on whom the Captain Marvel face was based by CC Beck. Fred McMurray was really his model. How even he could refuse to go into the middle of a hot, steamy jungle with Terry Moore. It's like, yeah, to heck with realism. Let's write the script we want to write.
So, as you know, DC Comics found a long time ago that putting a gorilla on a comic book cover moves product.
And,
Ba-
and then Gorilla Grodd was born.
Based on the Wikipedia page list of fictional primates in comics, which that's a real Wikipedia page, match the character with the description. You'll need a pencil.
Okay. I assume I'll need some paper too. I can't just write it on my face backwards and look at the screen. Let's see. Uh, Gosh, you'd think I'd have a pad of paper handy. It's a desk after all. But I've been kind of roaming around the house doing work lately, trying to keep Franklin busy. Oh, I should tell our friends in Radio Land or Podcast Land if I can ever find what I'm looking for here. But my dog Carter passed away. He was only 9 years old, but
Often heard on To the Bat Poles.
often heard on To the Bat Poles barking at, random people on bicycles who were clearly out to kill us and needed to be taken care of. Oh, the Russian tanks are rolling down the street. The squirrel. Anyway, he has passed away. Sadly, he had lymphoma, and but he was a trooper and a lovely dog. But we still have Franklin, who really likes to play in the morning. He's really like sleepier than he used to be in the morning, which is great. But part of the reason, Tim, that I was so late is I had to play with him for 5 minutes just to get his spring unwound. Throw stuff for him outside. Ball, ball, ball.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. So, four different characters. A, Sam Simeon. B, Hit Monkey. C, Gorilla Grodd. And D, Gorilla Man. Okay, and then the descriptions.
Okay.
One, a psychic gorilla supervillain. Two, a comics artist and talking gorilla who is a partner in the O'Day and Simeon Detective Agency. I'm just giving that away.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay, see if I can keep from giving any more away here. Three, a happy-go-lucky soldier of fortune who magically became an immortal ape by killing the existing immortal ape. And
There can
four,
be only one. It's like Highlander with
I
gorillas.
guess, four, a Japanese macaque who is an assassin and wears a suit.
Okay. So Hit Monkey's got to be the Japanese
Yeah,
macaque, right?
macaque.
Is that a character from Kick-Ass by any chance?
I think he first showed up in Deadpool.
Okay,
I
so
don't know. I don't
different
know that he
universe.
was in. Yeah.
Yeah, Kick-Ass was published by one of Marvel's imprints for a while, but it was
Hmm.
it never crossed over into any of the known comics universes. I just wondered
Right.
because there's a character called Hit Girl, of course, in
Um,
Kick-Ass.
Kick-Ass.
So let's see. So Sam Simian is the cartoonist and detective. You did give
Right.
that away, but
Of yeah, DC's Angel and the Ape.
oh, okay. Sam Simian is kind of cute because it matches the alliteration of Sam Spade, the
Mm,
Dashiell Hammett creation, who stars is the central character in the Maltese Falcon. Gorilla Grodd is the psychic,
hmm.
right? So that
Right.
means Gorilla Man is the
Yeah.
Highlander.
Yeah. So he's a character, a Marvel character who dates back to the Atlas Comics days.
Oh, hmm.
And he was, gone for a long time, and they brought him back in the Agents of Atlas series like 10, 15 years
2000.
ago.
Yeah, I think so. That was Ed Brubaker who wrote that, right? Well, just
Possibly. I don't remember
speculating.
now.
I miss
I
his
don't
Captain
remember now.
America, although Brubaker bugs me for some reasons, but we won't go into that right now. So okay. I
Yeah.
was going to
So
ask
you
you
got,
another question. Yeah, so that's
okay.
I guess that's it.
That's it.
And what about Sea Monkey?
You mean in the commercials, in the advertisements, in
Yes, yes,
the comics?
the sea monkeys with their little faces and their, family portraits. Those were
Well, I
drawn
mean,
by Joe Orlando of the EC and Mad Magazine fame.
if I said just add water and you have a monkey, then I mean it would be obvious which one that is.
Well, I don't sea monkeys. Again, a brilliant marketing scheme because if you actually have sea monkeys, they're just these tiny little brine shrimp who basically their eggs will last forever when they're dried out, and they're sort of like seeds. They'll still give birth. They'll
Hmm.
still break out. These little brine shrimp, but they're called sea monkeys because they're supposed to be so playful and friendly, but their brains are like the size of a like I don't know, a pinprick, and you could barely see them anyway. I mean, they're so tiny. We had some sea monkeys for a while. They're kind of hard to keep alive too. It doesn't matter if you even if you've got like the defibrillator in your house, they're just way too small to like resuscitate. The water
Clear.
gets dirty, and yeah, exactly. Probably send the thing right through the ceiling. Anyway, yes, they're like microdots. Those little, anyway, yeah.
Hmm.
So
Okay,
never mind.
those are the questions. So,
Well, and I guess I added a fifth by asking you about J. Arthur Crank.
hmm,
Um,
right.
I don't know. I think we might have talked about Crank and Electric Company a few years ago, and that led me to start digging in a little bit to J. Arthur Rank, whom I'd heard of, but didn't realize that he was really
Hmm.
closely associated with producing Powell and Pressburger films.
Yeah, I had in the past few years stumbled across J. Arthur Rank and was like, oh.
Well, I have to admit, this is a really mean sounding thing to say, but it's because, our son is 14. He's an adolescent. He takes showers a lot, but I'm not always sure he's using soap.
Hmm.
Um, And so sometimes he'll get in the car in the morning and I'm getting ready to take him to school. And I know this sounds horribly mean, but I'll say to him, Noah, if you were a film producer, you'd be J. Arthur Rank. He has no idea what I'm talking about, and it's just as well. You got it. What do we do? Do we shame him? Do we tell him that, he likes girls, but, do we tell him that they'll never go anywhere near him if he's got this kind of wall of odor, blocking their path? I don't know.
I think he'll figure it out.
I'm sure he will.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching.